see if anybody shows up here. It's been a long time since I've done a live stream of any kind. Hey, what's up? Mara15, hello. Hey, there's a bunch of people in here, cool. Thought I was not going to get anybody. It's good to see you guys. I had a few minutes, probably like, I don't know, 20 minutes or so, so I thought I would just chill and say, hey, what's up to you guys? It's 2 a.m. right now, rip. No, don't procrastinate with me. I don't want to have that on my hands. Where are you guys checking in from? England? Are you from London? You sound like you're from London. Man, you guys are all over the place. That's awesome. Dang, crazy. All over the place. Well, hey, first off, I just wanted to give a little bit of updates on what I've been doing, where I've been. I know you guys don't all follow me on like social media, like Twitter and stuff like that. So all you know is I haven't made a video in a long time. It's been a while, so really not too much new. I've been essentially busy with like my real job. My job changed recently to being kind of independent in what I was doing before as an assistant. So previously I was what's called a psychological assistant, and now I'm a fully licensed psychologist, so I'm doing all of my cases independently. So basically I test people all day, and then I come home and write reports all night. And then in the in-between spaces, I work on other things that I have, like my podcast or an online course that I'm working on, or trying to be like a father and husband for a few minutes here and there. So, you know, essentially I've just been really busy with that kind of stuff. And I've had a lot of ideas for videos that I might want to make, but it's just been not really possible to find the time. So one of the videos that I do want to make coming up actually though is a video about ways you can use your, thank you Lincoln, ways you can use your phone to help with your like mental health / just kind of overall well-being. So like certain apps that you can use, or just strategies with the default apps or things like that that you can use to use your phone for good rather than stress and evil and stuff like that. But you know, there's been a bunch of ideas for videos that have been rolling around in my head, but just not too much time to get them done recently. Not trying to look for pity or make excuses or anything like that, but that's what I've been doing. Also found out recently that, well, I've known for a while that my wife is pregnant again, and we found out that we're having a boy, so we're gonna have 2 little boys running around, which is insane. I'm really excited about it. It's cool, but it's gonna be pretty funny. My kid Remy is a handful these days. He's like, he's definitely a little boy. He reminds me of all the stories that you know, my parents told of me, or my mom told of me as a kid. And my wife would always, when I would tell her stories that my mom told, she would be like, oh God, I hope our kids don't turn out like you. Playing around, but also kind of serious. And then Remy is like my mini-me. He's like exactly how I was. So he's constantly like getting into stuff. My mornings with him are basically like, I'm trying to make breakfast and like feed the dog, and I'm like, wait, don't touch that. Wait, get off of that. Wait, stop. You know, just this and that and this and that. So he's a great kid though. He's really funny and he's really sweet. So basically we're going to have 2 little monsters running around, and my wife is completely outnumbered. So say a prayer for her sanity. Thank you for all the congrats, everybody. You know, the question of what it's like to raise children while being a psychologist, it's actually an interesting one because, you know, my wife's not a psychologist, and I've never been a parent before. Neither has she, you know, so it's like, in some ways, we're both coming into this at the same the same playing field, the same level, you know. And then on the other hand, there are certain ways that I'm thinking about things that are very clinical, and there are ways that she's thinking about things that are different from that. And so sometimes when it's like, okay, she's a mom, she has a gut feeling, she has an instinct, and this is what it's telling her, and I'm thinking more about like, well, you know, how does this line up with what I know from my education, my schooling, and things of that nature? It's pretty interesting. That's all I could say. You know, like we tend to be on the same page for the most part, but we definitely do have those moments of trying to figure out the middle ground between the two of those things. And it's interesting because, you know, like I said, I've never been a parent before. I've worked a lot with children. I worked with specifically children with developmental disabilities such as autism or, you know, other disorders like that for like 5-6 years. But, you know, having your own kid's a whole different ball game. You know, having them in limited doses in like a professional sort of setting is different. You know, when it's actually your kid, you're with them all the time, and some of the strategies and behavioral things that you would do, like they don't always work out the way that they're supposed to in a textbook or like a work environment. So you know, it's been an interesting ride so far. You know, I've been trying really hard to be present and be, you know, like a good dad and a good husband and all of that. So, you know, I take certain times off, like I take Monday afternoons or morning up until the afternoon off so that I can, you know, spend solo time with him. I take him to this place called the Fun Zone where he gets to run around and be a kid and stuff like that. And then, you know, we eat dinner at the table every night together. If we're together for lunch, we eat at the table together. So we have a lot of times that we're spending together as a family and stuff. But I could totally see how in my line of work you could be very, very absentee because there's basically just this unlimited amount of work. And, you know, the more you want to make, the more clients you mush into that amount of time. You know, I could take 1 million clients and have 1 million reports stacked up that I need to write, but then I don't exist anymore. So that's one reason why I'm really happy that I've kind of diversified what I do. Like I have my books that I sell, you know, I have other things that I work on. I'm currently working on a course that I'll be selling, and that helps me to like balance these issues because a lot of psychologists, you have to crank out a lot of clients in order to make a living. And right now for me, it's somewhere around 50-50 between what I, you know, just monetarily, what I make from my real job versus what I make from, you know, online revenue sources and things like that. So I'm, you know, fortunate and blessed to be able to do that. And it's something that I've been trying to, you know, stay conscious of. I rambled for a lot. I saw a lot of questions popping up. Feel free to ask questions. If I didn't get to what you had said, feel free to repeat yourself. I'm just waiting. So I stopped talking and suddenly it gets super awkward and I don't see any questions or statements. When I was talking, it was like, and now I stopped and everyone's being quiet. Oh, okay, so maybe people are getting, posting too much and it's not showing up or something like that. I'm streaming off of mobile, as you guys can obviously probably tell, so it may not be the perfect. What type of patients are your favorite or that you find unique? It's interesting. I see a lot of different types of patients. You know, part of what I do is I kind of have a 50-50 split job with my clinical work. Half of it is therapy, not even half. I do less therapy than the testing, but I do mainly the psychological testing, the neuropsychological testing, and then I also do the therapy. And my therapy clients are very different from my testing clients. A lot of my testing clients are older individuals, people who are starting to have memory problems. We're evaluating them for things like dementia, you know, problems with their thinking skills. Now for the therapy, I tend to focus more on anxiety, other types of mental health issues that are, wide ranging. I would say that I do like working with anxiety disorders quite a lot. That's why I wrote my first book on that. And in particular, I've kind of found some success working with people who haven't liked therapy in the past for one reason or another. So that's not really a specific diagnosis, but I tend to like working with people who tried a bunch of therapists and kind of gave up on it, and they're giving it one more shot because for some reason that just tends to work out well for me. Especially people, interestingly, I've been able to work with a few people who have unique types of anxiety disorders. So I worked with somebody who had a phobia of pregnancy and wanted to have kids. So like a legitimate phobia of pregnancy. That was a really interesting one, as well as people who have like agoraphobia. So they're not able to leave the house without feeling extreme discomfort, verging on panic attack. So those ones have been interesting and actually pretty cool because I do online therapy as well as in-person therapy. And for people who have agoraphobia and have a hard time leaving the house, that's actually like a really perfect match because they can talk to me from their home and we could work toward that. And so it's not like, going and seeing a doctor in like real life, outside of the house. That's kind of prohibitive when that's the exact problem you're having. So that's been pretty interesting. I saw somebody ask if I majored only in psychology in college. I did major only in psychology. I started off as a biology and psychology double major, but I realized that it wasn't going to be worth the extra effort. Part of me feels like I was also a little bit bitter because one of my biology classes was the only B that I got in college. And after I got that, I was kind of pissed off. I'm like, I don't even need this. I'm not even doing biology. I'll just get a BS instead of a BA. And so, yeah, that kind of pissed me off. And so I kind of abandoned it from there. But, if you're wondering if you should double major in something, I would say don't do it just to, bye Margo. I would say don't do it just to look better to like an application board, for whatever you're applying to. But if it's related to what you are applying to, if you feel like you need to flesh out that side of your experience for some reason, then it might be worth doing that. But there are other things that tend to matter more than that, such as your grades, what involvements you have, if you're able to get any research experience, things of that nature. So somebody else asked, what can you do to deal with like how the world's going? I didn't catch the whole question as it was going by. But the state of the world, how crazy things are, how kind of just amped up things are. One thing that I would really, really suggest is being honest with yourself about the effects that certain things have on you, especially related to social media, and how much you allow yourself to dive into it. A lot of people sort of conflate these ideas of being aware of what's going on versus torturing yourself with what's going on. So basically what I mean by that is, if you're aware of what's going on in the news, you have a good idea of the different opinions of what are going on, but you still have a tendency to go to Facebook, open up the comment sections and see the same shit play out over and over again that you already know what to expect. Sometimes that can, have the effect of really upsetting you and kind of, like I said, torturing yourself with it. And, the other thing that people do is think they have to know every single thing that's going on in the moment that it happens all the time. And so there's this feeling that you need to be constantly connected and constantly aware and constantly paying attention, when in reality, if you were to wait 5 hours, the news doesn't change a whole lot. You can catch up on that if you need to focus on some things going on in your life. So, allowing yourself to disconnect at certain points throughout the day, I think is really, really important, especially like before you go to bed, because if you don't have some sort of transition where you're unplugged before you go to bed, you take all of that with you and it can really disrupt your sleep. And if your sleep's disrupted, then you do, poorer work the next day or studying or whatever you're involved with. And then that makes you feel sad. And it's just kind of this rollover effect. So, honestly evaluating the impact that things have on you is really helpful and really important. And then finding some way to be, just more intentional and responsible with the way you let those things hit you and the times that you do go out there and, take in those things. What is your opinion on the work of Sigmund? Obviously, you're meeting Sigmund Freud. Freud was a fucking weirdo. He has a lot of things that hit the mark. He also has a lot of things that didn't. I always kind of, I hold this opinion that, you know, if you look at old psychology writings, psychology, philosophy, you know, things of that nature, the really old fundamental texts, so like Freud, Jung, even like B.F. Skinner, whatever, you know, people that are kind of old foundational names in psychology, they wrote so much stuff, and in my opinion, it's like basically a Twitter feed in written form. There's so much random rambling stuff, like just statistically, some of it's going to hit the mark, you know. So I think that there's more to it than just the statistical probability of them getting some things right. I think that, you know, Freud had some really wise ideas, and you know, noticed some things that were, you know, common patterns in people, and found his own way of explaining it. So in a way, he was really fundamental just in terms of looking at development, looking at the impact of things that have happened in your past. Some of his specific ideas are pretty wackadoodle, I think, but you know, it's all about noticing those patterns and how it makes sense to you in your mind. And that's the way it made sense to him in his mind. That's how he sort of translated those experiences, you know, to make sense to him. I actually have a book up behind me, up in right there. That's letters from Freud to Carl Jung, and there's some interesting stuff in there. But yeah, you know, I think Freud was weird, but also important, and you know, there's a reason a lot of people don't practice strict, you know, psychoanalysis in the way that he prescribed it in the past, and it's more of a dynamic kind of blended therapy with more modern touches to it, because you know, he was an old weirdo, and he was a misogynist, and you know, he was blocked in his period of time, and he was very, very obsessed with sex and death. Let's see, what time is it? I got a little more time. Thank you guys for joining me, by the way. I didn't know if anyone was going to show up, but I'm glad I still got a few people interested. You know what? I don't know how easy it is to find the letters between Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. It's one that I actually found in a used bookstore. So I was walking through and I looked at it. I'm like, yep, I want to buy this. So I don't know. Google it. I'm sure you could find some. They're probably not super rare. This one up here, I don't know if you could see in the actual image here, but it's a pretty old version of it. Thank you, Apathetic Passion. That's a pretty good name. Okay. I did see a question. Okay, do I ever watch or listen to ASMR? Yeah, I do. I haven't been as much recently. I go through kind of phases of doing it. Like, it depends on what my activities are, what I'm doing, and you know, like, yeah, last night I did listen to some ASMR, watch some ASMR while I was doing some report writing, but I get in different moods. Like right now I've really been into audiobooks, so that's kind of been like, oh yeah, sorry, pausing for a second. For anybody that's here and hasn't seen the recent changes for my channel, I've essentially stopped making ASMR videos. It's kind of a drawn out transition. A lot of people kind of saw coming, but I made a video all about that. So if you look a few videos back on my feed, you'll see a video explaining why I've stopped making ASMR videos and what my channel is like now. So feel free to check that out. Oh my God, I forgot what the hell I was saying. What was I talking about before I interrupted myself there? Oh, watching ASMR videos. So yeah, like I was watching some last night while I was report writing, but like I said, I've been really into audiobooks recently, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of music, and things like that. So it kind of just depends on the mood that I'm in. I think I saw somebody ask if I ever miss making ASMR videos. Totally, 100%. There have been a few nights where I'm like, man, maybe I should just pull out the gear and go make a video. I still have my, you can see up right there, my camera and my 3DO are up there. But you know, it just goes to stand that like it takes so much effort, so much time, so much, you know, the perfect situation. Like right now, I couldn't record an ASMR video without putting my computer on standby because the fan's too loud and there have been people street racing outside, so that would be annoying, and I had to edit out things and blah 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 blah. So, you know, I do miss it at certain points, but for me it was like, it's more of an emotional kind of limit slash boundary that I had to put, because if I was still actively making ASMR videos, I would feel the pressure that I had to be making videos. And even if it's not stated by, you know, people in the audience, there's just still like a feeling, like a felt sense of pressure, like I really need to find some time to make a video. And just another thing that occupies sort of my mental real estate that has a lot of different things competing for that space. So it feels like it was the best choice for me. You know, that was my opinion. Well, thank you for that apathetic passion. I appreciate it. You know, and I do feel, oh, my account before this was Just a Whispering Guy, before it became Death the Psych ASMR, before it became Death the Psych. So that's kind of the history there. And I if you're confused, it totally makes sense. I made ASMR videos for like 5 years or some crap like that, and then kind of stopped. But, you know, it has to be what it is. It's just things kind of continue to move on. Selective mutism. You know, I am not super well versed in selective mutism, so that's one that I couldn't really talk too much about. I know it does stem from a place of anxiety, you know, but it's really interesting because you know, it can be very frustrating with families, with schools, etc., because, you know, a child with selective mutism will not be mute in all situations, and a lot of parents or, you know, teachers or whatever will feel like the kid's making it up, or like they're just trying to be difficult. But I know that that's not the case. Beyond that, you know, I'm not really too well versed in selective mutism. I mean, I work with adults a whole lot more than I work with kids, and that's sort of by design. So, you know, I wouldn't want to provide any bad information on that. Favorite comic book superhero? That's tough. So for one, I'm really terrible about like superlatives. My favorite anything. Like, I don't have a favorite food. I don't have a favorite band. I don't know. I like Spider-Man. Who else do I like? He's probably one of the like the only like really mainstay ones that I like. You know, obviously I like Deadpool. He's funny. I don't like all of the Deadpool stuff because it can get pretty out there. But, you know, I like a lot of different comic book characters. I watch, I don't get to read a lot of comic books, but I'll watch like Comic Storian, or there's another one. There's somebody else. I'm forgetting, who am I forgetting? I'm going to look this up really quick. There's a couple YouTube channels where they break down, you know, stories from comic books, and they put some of the actual pages from the comic books in there, and, you know, they'll tell the story back and stuff like that. And they're really cool to get summaries and just learn more about the stuff that you may have not been able to read. And I like to watch those when I'm like doing dishes or things like that. Where is it? I'm looking behind you guys. That's why I'm staring. This is a problem. I have too many damn subscriptions. Let's see. Oh, Comics Explained. That's the other one. That's Rob's. So Comics Explained and Comic Story. I listen to those or watch those sometimes. Anyways, that was total tangent. But yeah, I'm really, like I said, I'm really bad at superlatives. People, it bugs my wife all the time because I'm like, I don't know. I like all kinds of stuff. I don't have favorites. I'm terrible at that. Like if we were on the like the Newlyweds show or like the dating game or whatever, where you have to like guess what the other person's gonna respond, she would just be like, he doesn't have a preference. He doesn't know. I don't know a goddamn thing about Revelations or the Rapture, so I couldn't answer you there. Yes, it is. It is a little hot still for fall. The the world is not happy with us, though. The earth is not happy with us, so I'm not taking anything for, for what it is. Where the whole earth seems like it's going to just split in half at a certain point. So just enjoying it while it lasts. If anybody out there has been affected by like the recent weather phenomenon and the disasters going on, hopefully, you guys are doing okay, and hopefully your families are doing okay and all of that. Is there any possible way to control the fight or flight response? That's a big question. So the fight or flight response is when you have the physiological response in your body that like is designed to keep you safe. So you have, an elevation in your heart rate, your breathing increases, you have greater muscle tension, the things that basically happen if you are walking on the sidewalk and a car comes careening at you and you have to jump out of the way suddenly. That feeling is the fight or flight response. And that's governed by a part of your nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system. So that's the fight or flight nervous system. And on the flip side of that, we have something called the parasympathetic nervous system, which a lot of people call the rest and digest nervous system. Basically, it comes in behind the fight or flight response and cleans it up. So lowers your heart rate, lowers your breathing rate, comes in, slows everything down, and sort of cleans up the mess left by that. And really, the best way to initiate that parasympathetic reaction, that rest and digest reaction, is through deep breathing. So you can really teach yourself through deep breathing to initiate that as part of your nervous system. And I would say that, there's really, I don't want to say no way, there's not no way, but it's really not worth trying to stop yourself from having that fight or flight response in real situations involving danger. But when it comes to like anxiety of something that's not actually dangerous, so for instance, going into a class and having to say something, or some situation that causes you anxiety that doesn't involve any real danger, teaching yourself how to breathe deeply and initiate that relaxation response can be really, really valuable in sort of combating the fight or flight response. But when I say teaching yourself, I mean like actually practicing it. So using it as a skill, teaching yourself how to initiate the response by sitting down, breathing, noticing the way your body feels, noticing the way things change, and going through that repetitively when you're not already under stress, so that when you do have a fight or flight response, you have this well-rehearsed sort of thing that you can go through to kick that into gear. So that's kind of, in my opinion, what you could do about that fight or flight response if it's coming up in those ways. Do you think someone with a personality disorder absolutely needs to go to some sort of therapy or have medication? That's a big question. Personality disorders are basically a type of mental disorder that's not just kind of on the surface level regarding, just symptoms, but it's more deeply ingrained in somebody's personality. So things like borderline personality disorder or avoidant personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder. Do they need to be in therapy? A lot of times, yes, but it comes down to how many problems it's causing them in their real everyday life. So for instance, if they're unable to maintain relationships, if they're unable to maintain a job, if they're, just cause severe distress by the way that their personality disorder is interacting with the world, that's when I would say they need to be in some sort of treatment. You mentioned medications. Often medications aren't very effective for personality disorders. Sometimes they are. It's kind of a case by case basis, and it depends on which one you're talking about. But you know, oftentimes with personality disorders, it's not about actually changing them, because it's very hard to change kind of your fundamental personality structure, but it's finding ways to reinterpret the way you see the world and the way that a case by case, base by base cases. Did I say that? I hope I didn't say base by base cases. It's more about, you know, changing the way that you interpret the world and how you interact with it. So kind of putting limits and boundaries and trying to find a way for it to sort of coexist there. There are certainly symptoms that you can mitigate, that you can make better, and ways that you can sort of correct some of these experiences. You can have a lot of like recovery from personality disorders. For instance, a lot of people with, you know, borderline or other really relationship related personality disorders, eventually through having more healthy relationships, they can learn a different pattern of being, and it can make a big difference. But they're very hard to treat. You know, a lot of people don't try not to work with personality disorders too much because, you know, honestly, within the research, the rates of improvement are not very high. Someone said, can you do a live Q&A once or twice a week? Probably not, but I can do them more often. I can try to do that for sure. Top 3 things you need to know as an adult. Good sleep hygiene. So learning how to actually, you know, not be stubborn and have good behaviors related to sleep so that you can get solid sleep, you know, both in terms of the quality and the amount that you're getting, because that's going to underlie a lot of other things that you do in your life. Realizing that time is, you know, your life's timeline is a lot longer than you think it is. When things seem really, really immediate, or that they're going on for way, way too long, you got to realize that you actually, as a human, live quite a long life, and that, you know, things are not usually as immediate as they seem. A lot of people give themselves a really hard time for like being in a situation that they have been in for too long. And, you know, I always tell them, like, hey, if you were to make some serious changes within the next year, you still have the vast majority of your life that you can live without that problem. So, you know, life is longer than we think. So sleep hygiene, life's longer than we think. What's the last thing that I would say you need to know as an adult? That's a good one. I don't know. I'm giving up on that one. My brain is a little bit too sluggish at this time of night. Oh, what did I miss there? I don't know how to go and look at old comments. I'm sorry. Oh, wait. If you could control the topic of scientific research for 10 years, what would you focus on? Honestly, what I would focus on right now is like psychedelic drugs and other methods of treating like treatment-resistant psychological issues. It's clear that, you know, different types of things that we consider to be like, you know, psychoactive drugs have a sort of resetting effect for people who are having really difficult mental health issues. So, you know, the mechanism isn't fully understood, but it seems to be somewhat similar to like when you get electroconvulsive therapy or other things like that, where your brain kind of just goes through a reset, and that helps you to recover from things that have been really resistant to treatment in the past. And unfortunately, it's really hard. There's a lot of red tape, and it's hard to get, you know, funding. It's hard to complete, you know, experiments, because you can't exactly. It's just hard. It's just hard. There's a lot of difficulties in doing research there. So if I had a choice, I would say like do a ton of research on that, because it could be really helpful. Rapper that speaks to me on a different level. I don't know. You know, one rapper that's been that at least has played a significant role in my life is actually Watsky. He's He's like this little white dude, but his rap is very, very intelligent and very. A lot of them are very motivational, and so a lot of his music has inspired me to kind of like. I mean, I included a quote of one of his songs in my first book because I was listening to it a lot during that time, and it just makes me want to work. And a lot of the solutions to my life's problems have come from putting in more work, and so that's why he comes to mind. What else we got here? Starting my first year of college, feeling a bit overwhelmed. Any tips or ideas for time management? God, so time management for your first year of college, I would say do like a real audit on your time. Actually be honest with yourself about how you're spending your time. Like one thing we tend to do is when we hit a roadblock, suddenly switch to something easy. So for instance, if you're trying to write a paper, you put the Word document in front of you, you can't think of anything for a minute, so you switch to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, something like that. That's a really bad habit to get into. So my best advice would be to try to break that habit and allow yourself the opportunity to actually sit down and do deep work without having all these distractions and trying to do everything at once, because we think we're good at that, but oftentimes we're really not. If you are, more power to you, but a lot of people lie to themselves about their ability to do that. So that's one thing that I would say. And like I said, audit how you are spending your time and be honest with yourself. Do you need to take anything off of your plate? Do you need to increase anything? Sometimes it helps to get an outside perspective as well, but just being honest with yourself about how you are spending your time is kind of really the first step. Okay, it's coming up on midnight here, and that is my bedtime. I gotta go wash a couple dishes before I do that. So I appreciate all of the questions. I'll try to do this again in the future. When I get a few minutes. Now that I know that there's a bunch of you who would show up and say hey. But for now, I'm going to take off. Hey, I do want to encourage you guys before I do take off to go to duffthepsych.com, and you can check out all sorts of, for one, podcast episodes, blog posts, things like that. There's a little search bar up at the top, and if you click on search and just put in a topic like PTSD or borderline personality disorder or anything like that, you'll see all the stuff that I've written that relates to that, or all the podcasts I've done that relate to that. So you might find some interesting stuff in there. And I am currently working on an online course that I'll be doing related to anxiety. So it's going to be like a 10-week course teaching you how to overcome anxiety. And you can check that out at duffthepsych.com/course. Right now I'm just collecting emails for people that want to be involved in sort of the pre-launch process of helping me sort of fine-tune it. And anybody that signs up for that before the end of this week will be getting kind of a guaranteed discount. So check that out if you're interested. But otherwise, I will be back here again sometime in the hopefully not too distant future. All right, guys. Well, have a great night or day, whatever time it is where you are, and I appreciate you. All right. Peace.